Ladies, gentlemen, honorable justices, children, a very warm welcome to you all on behalf of Women in Law. Now, before I talk about what this study entails, why we are gathered here today, I understand that all of you have your understanding and your interpretations of what fair and representation means. But one thing is certain, and one thing is absolute, and that is the need to be seen, the need to be felt, and most importantly, the need to be heard. Fair representation for you could mean anything. It could mean your local elective winning the local seat. It could mean a trans person in the Supreme Judiciary. It could mean anything for you. But how many of you have been called to seminars that proudly boast themselves as the champion of women's rights, the flag bearer of women's rights, where they talk about justice and minorities and those differently abled and trans persons, and the second they walk outside the door, they have nothing more to say? And I'd like to talk more about the ones that are held in the bar, because those are my particular favorite, because there's not a woman in sight. And I'm talking about the audience. So let's talk about why we're really gathered here today. Let's talk about the study. Let's talk about why it's important to have this discussion. How many have you been told that a seat on the table is enough? That you were called to a meeting and just the fact that your presence was there was enough? I'm sorry, but if I'm going to climb up the ladder and join you in a position of leadership, I'm not just going to sit. I'm going to make sure that I sit on the table and I'm able to pass the salt as well. Because it's not about just sitting at the table, it's about making sure you take your own decisions as well and have a place in the decision-making process. And I would like to quote Ruth Bader Ginsburg here, the late notorious RBG, who stated that women belong in positions, in places where decisions are made. And I think that is exactly why the essence of how we're gathered here today for this study launch, and it's in that essence we're here to talk about the underrepresented. Let us go back to 1974. The reason why I want to take you back to 1974 is to discuss Khalida Rashid, an anti-corruption judge who spent years of her life for the cause that she believed in. And discussions around meritocracy and competency were already happening then. They said to us that they couldn't see any female that was competent. They told us that they saw women that were not up to the merit. And these are conversations that we've been hearing since 1974. But more interestingly, let me take you to 1982, where Birney versus the Federation of Pakistan was the first case to talk about why female justices shouldn't exist in the first place. And more interestingly, back in 2010, in Murtaza versus Federation of State, where the idea of a female justice was unacceptable. Think about Pakistan's history. I want you to think about Pakistan's 70-something-year-old history and think about the women that we've seen in positions of leadership. Think about the generals. Think about the politicians. Think about the Prime Minister, Benazir Bhutto. Prime Minister being one of the toughest positions to ever sort of be the hardest and sort of challenging positions that women have to face. But one thing that is certain is that those that came before us, both those that have fought for the cause for the underrepresented and those that have greatly opposed it, one thing escaped their lifetime, and that is witnessing a female Supreme Court justice. The reason why I say this with emphasis is that it still gives me the chills. I'm very proud to say that, I'm very honored to say that, but at the same time it makes me angry for reasons that I can and cannot explain. It's not enough to have a designated space. It's not enough to have one person shatter the ceiling. It is not enough for us to say, oh, well, you've had one, so you can go back home and take away your speeches because you've won this round. We're not looking at temporary solutions. We're not here to look at temporary mechanisms. We are here to look at permanent solutions and a mechanism that caters to those underrepresented. The study that we're going to be talking about here today is regarding the fair representation of those underrepresented in the justice sector. And here's why this conversation is particularly important to have. The reason why this conversation is so important to have, and this is one of the reasons that could possibly separate us from the other seminars, is that we need to acknowledge just where we are going wrong from this point on. It is to understand that the conversation and dialogue that we're having here today could be the reason that a victim in court need not explain beyond necessity what coercion means, or why she wore what she wore the other day, or what it meant to her when somebody touched her from behind the back. Nobody needs to explain these things beyond necessity. We need to make sure that we're having dialogues of those that are underrepresented so that a trans person feels safe in our courtrooms, so that those differently abled know that they have a space here where decisions are made. And I'm very proud to sort of talk about this dialogue with women in law. Thank you.